In this video, I'm going to be explaining in scientific detail exactly why you should skip legs. No, I'm just kidding, but I will be talking about why you should train the muscles you actually care about and sort of prioritize them more. So I guess that kind of is why you should skip legs. Most workout programs you'll find now, and just like the narrative in the fitness community, is that you should train every muscle fairly equally. And of course you do want a balanced physique, but if you care about something more than another muscle, then it doesn't make sense to train them equally. Like me personally, I care more about my arms, and my legs are fairly proportionate to my upper body, so I'm going to prioritize my arms more than my legs. And let's be honest, I couldn't care less about hamstrings. And so since I actually really want to grow my arms more, I'm going to prioritize that muscle. It sounds kind of like common sense, but just think about why you started. Like for me, it was the only reason was just because I wanted bigger arms and I wanted abs. Like, let's be honest, that's why we all started, right? Just biceps. Now, of course, you still want to train like each muscle, but I think there's still some value in thinking about your original goals and really sticking to those goals. Like, for example, I got sidetracked into calisthenics about a year ago, and that wasn't really my goal. It was sort of like a desire that was placed onto me that I got externally, but it wasn't really the reason why I actually started. And obviously, calisthenics is not the best way to get bigger arms. I'll talk about goals and shiny object syndrome a little bit later in this video. But yeah, basically, I don't really care about my legs as much as some other muscles. So obviously, I'm going to train those other muscles more. Now, of course, obviously, I'm still training legs. I'm not saying to just skip legs. But all I'm saying is that you really just want to slightly bias your training towards the muscle groups you care about, not like fully prioritize them. The main way I'm doing this is just with the volume, so how many sets you do per muscle. So for example, I'm just adding a lot more sets to my arms and slightly fewer for other muscle groups like legs. Now, I'm not saying to do like a full-on prioritization phase, because that would involve putting other muscle groups on maintenance. You're still trying to grow everything, but you're just trying to grow the muscles you care about a bit more. And the way you're doing that is mainly through volume. And there's research showing like a lot of volume can actually be beneficial. So if you just sort of try to add more sets to the muscles you care about and just sort of slightly fewer or just keep it the same for the other ones, then you can still grow everything, but maybe grow the muscles you care about a little bit more. And you still want proportional development and don't let anything lag behind. And of course, there's like a certain amount of volume you can do per week. So it's not like you could put everything at like 20 to 30 sets per week and just grow everything optimally. So of course, if you really want to grow your arms and you're doing like 30 sets a week for biceps and triceps, then you're going to have to probably sacrifice some volume for other muscles. Like obviously don't take it too far and just say like, oh, well, I care about my arms, so I'm just going to train my arms and never train legs. Like, obviously, you still want to develop proportional physique, like I already said. And it's not just about the physical work you're doing to prioritize muscle, but it's also the mental aspect. Because, like, if, for example, you really want to grow your arms, or let's say your forearms, but in your head you're thinking of it as kind of like a small muscle, or like just an accessory exercise, like what you're doing for it, well, then you're not really going to be growing it the most you can. So it's also about the mindset shift and just mentally focusing on the muscles you care about more. Like, just because something's a smaller muscle, that doesn't mean you can't do a lot of work for it. Like, if you want to prioritize forearms or neck or whatever, then that's not like an accessory. That's your priority. Like, if you really want to grow your forearms, you shouldn't just see it as like, oh, it's just a small muscle, like, deadlifts are enough, the grip aspect, like just from pulling movements, like no, like your forearm isolation work shouldn't be seen as accessory work, because that's what you're prioritizing. There's a whole other conversation on like isolation versus compound for smaller muscles like forearms on the deadlift, but I would say like if you really want to prioritize that muscle, don't just think it'll be hit like along with other muscles. Like if you want to grow your biceps, don't think that just doing like chin-ups and rows is enough. Another example is like hamstrings in deadlifts. Now, hamstrings do play a large part in the deadlift, along with the glutes, probably the two main movers. But if you really want to prioritize your hamstrings, which you probably don't, let's be honest, But just if you did, then you wouldn't just be doing deadlifts, you'd probably be doing Romanian deadlifts and leg curls. Really, the main takeaway of this is just about your goals and not falling into shiny object syndrome, which is basically where, well, I'll explain it, like, just tell my story, but basically, like, at first I started because I just wanted to build muscle, right? And then after about a year, I started falling into calisthenics because I just, like, thought it was cool or whatever. That's kind of like shiny object syndrome. So normally, like, you have a goal, right? And you're just going in a straight path to that goal. But then shiny object syndrome is where, like, you sort of fall into a side tangent and you're sort of going after another goal. But if you keep doing that, you'll never actually get to that goal you wanted. So when I started doing calisthenics, that was only slowing down my potential for muscle growth. And in that specific scenario, it would have actually been better to just focus on hypertrophy first because, I mean, if you want to do a planche, you're going to have to get bigger biceps. And the way to get bigger biceps is through hypertrophy training, not calisthenics. So it's like, you got to do the hypertrophy first. That's like the base. But besides that, basically just stick to your authentic goals and don't let other people place desires onto you. But you just have to be aware that there's always going to be other goals. And this applies to any area of life, really. There's always going to be things pulling you in different directions, trying to distract you. And you need to have macro focus, which is to focus on your goals long term. And it's definitely not easy, and you'll probably end up falling into it a lot before you actually realize that, like, oh shoot, this isn't actually my goal. So just, like, be aware of it and try not to get, like, dragged in different directions. So just a quick example of how I'm prioritizing my arms more. So basically, how I do it is, like, after a deload, like, all my muscles go down to slightly lower volume to start at, and then I just slowly increase the sets for maybe, 2 months, however long that training cycle is, and then deload again. So basically, I'm starting everything at a very low volume, so I'll just add more sets onto my arms, but then something like my legs, I'll add sets more slowly, or maybe just keep them slightly lower. But if you don't like that sort of model of, like, sort of increasing your volume and then deload and restart, and you just want to keep your volume more, like, steady, then just do slightly higher volume for the muscles you care about and then slightly lower for the ones you don't care about as much. And when I say, like, care about muscle, it's kind of like what muscles are more important for your specific goal. Like, if you're trying to become more aesthetic and attractive, then, certain muscles are going to be more important than others. Like, shoulders, for example, is probably maybe just a little bit more important than calves, let's be honest. Now, you would still train your calves in that scenario, but just, like, more volume for your shoulders, less for your calves. Simple as that. That's basically all I gotta say, so see you in the next one.